coach. You can find out more about me at pronotbusy.com. And today we're going to do a bit of networking at Startup Grind. The people who attend, if they've got businesses with products or services that the other attendees might be able to use, they put them down on the board here, and we're going to match people up and generate some referrals today.
I'm from Midfield Limited, and tonight I'm hoping to learn more from other entrepreneurs, from their journey and how to apply it to my own.
Hi there, my name is Jenna. I'm the talent acquisition specialist at Zona, and we're sponsoring the drinks tonight. We're a business who loves telling stories and is super passionate about storytelling, and really looking forward to hearing the story that's going to be told tonight.
Okay, on to the main event of the evening. So, Catherine Luckhoff is how you pronounce it. Yeah, there we go, thank you. And I've been practicing this for a while. So she's also top 40 under 40, I think more like top 25 under 25, I think, of Destiny Mag. And she's also in the Women Tech to Look Out For, according to Mail and Guardian. Licky actually won, the app actually won a Pendoring Award, which is quite a cool Afrikaans thing, for one of the best ad campaigns. It's pretty cool. And local and Devon candidate, as well as F&B Innovation Award. So guys, can you please stand up, get some energy in the room, give a massive round of applause. Everyone on your feet, there we go. Stand up, round of applause for Catherine Luckhoff. Woo!
Hey.
Woo-hoo. Thank you so much for coming. Give me a hand. There we go.
Thanks for having me.
Please take a seat. Is your microphone working at least?
Testing.
Testing.
Yeah.
There we go.
This is
All right.
really intimidating. Hi.
Guys, this is a very informal.
wine.
There we go. You see, this is class, man.
Yeah.
Very informal chat here. Please ask questions. Chat with us as we have ask a few questions. And yes, so every startup grind that we ever have, we always start off with a very basic question: where were you born?
Louis Leipold Hospital in Belleville, but my parents lived in Grabouw.
Whoa! So they
Yeah.
drove all the way through.
Well, dude, they didn't have hospitals in Grabouw. It's a very small town. So,
Okay,
yeah.
so I actually did some Googling and I found this little tiny speck near the Free State called Luckhoff, which is
Yes.
actually a city. Is that any relation there?
It's a small town. There's also a school called Luckhoff in Stellenbosch.
Wow.
One of my forefathers started Rhenish missionaries. There's a whole lot of doctors and dominees in our family. As you can see, I already followed the line on that one. But yeah, there are a bunch of Luckhoffs that came up, but I'm very proud to say I'm 7th generation South African. It's one of my favorite questions to answer when I go to Nigeria. So I usually get asked, how long have you been in South Africa? And I'll be like, 7 generations.
Wow.
And then they're like, really? But you're white. So it's always a great.
Great way to put that on. Okay, and what did you study?
I was going to study BCom law,
Okay.
but I went to school in Stellenbosch, and if anyone here lives or works in Stellenbosch or ever went to school there, it tends to be a bit of an echo chamber. And so I told my parents, as my 2 older brothers did, that I was going to go overseas first. And luckily, I have parents who travel a lot, so they liked that idea. And I came back halfway through my gap year and looked at my dad and went, there is no way I'm studying law. Like, that's not going to happen. And I did a late entry for Cape Tech, and I did a degree in public relations and strategic communication.
Okay. So the question is, what in 60 seconds, give us your, because you've been practicing your pitch. In 60 seconds, what is NicheStream and what is Licky?
So NicheStream is a music streaming service that we've built from scratch. It basically allows you to white label or create your own music stream, and specifically around niche music genres, so whether it's Nigerian gospel or South African gospel or Afrikaans music or Persian music for that matter. And the intention behind it is that you can brand and curate music channels, and that you can make music streaming profitable, and you can help artists actually earn money from streaming, which you don't get from mass market streaming services. So we believe there's a link between culture and music on this continent and other emerging markets. And Licky is the first dedicated Afrikaans music streaming service, in the world. And we feature 40,000 Afrikaans tracks, 500 artists.
40,000 Afrikaans tracks.
Yeah.
I thought there were only 5 Afrikaans artists.
No, there are about 500 on our platform.
500 Afrikaans, wow.
So Licky is offer. So if you think of it like DSTV, we have built one back end and we basically brand and curate channels on top of that. And instead of paying $10 a month for hip hop to heavy metal to gospel to pop, if you're a diehard fan of Afrikaans music, you now only have to pay $49.99 and you get all the Afrikaans music you love.
49.99 rand, so that's like
And we hope to bring
$3
that
or
down.
something,
The intention is to bring it down to about $1.50 to $2 per stream.
Wow.
And in future, look at not making it subscription-based for emerging markets, but basically getting brands to pay for it, because there's a way to, if you think of music streaming services, from a user perspective, I can tell what mood you're in just by looking at the music stream or the playlist you're listening to. I can tell what time of day it is. Actually, Johan can tell all of this, our CTO. But we can tell what time of day, what your calendar's doing, where you're going, whether you're male or female, what your friends are listening to, what people around you are listening to, what the weather's
That's
doing,
just out
whether
of your
it's
music.
Wednesday, whether it's like Wednesday in the middle of a holiday. So we can really help brands engage with users in a very meaningful way, and we can help users get closer to their artists, and we can give them backstage passes and tickets. And the idea is to start looking at how do you build other models around music streaming and ultimately help artists earn money, users engage with the music they love, and for us to make money, because we're capitalists.
So we, as startups are. When you started NicheStream and Licky, was that the intention, or did you like, oh cool, I just want to do a streaming app, and then it became this beast of a vision?
My better half is in the room, and I remember very clearly saying to him one day, like, shit, how did I get here? It started just on a whim. I was involved in a startup that was funded by Google and Nvidia, and we were building an app for talent discovery in Africa. So the intention was, if you were a musician or a filmmaker or a poet, you could self-publish. And this is when, I'm talking 4 or 5 years ago, when bandwidth was really expensive and dumb phones still ruled the world, and artists were really hitting a glass ceiling. They couldn't get breakthrough and they couldn't make money. And I had the opportunity as a result of that to speak at a couple of conferences, and I met some smart, interesting people. And I had also in a previous life worked with DSTV, and like, if you're a fan of KykNet, you're watching KykNet, and if you're a fan of Supersport, you watch Supersport. And of course you subscribe to a whole bouquet, and then now drilling down into that. But I was just thinking, like, why do you have to subscribe to everything? Because if I look at my own tastes, I listen to the same stuff to Lewis's dismay over and over and over again. And I figured, why can't you offer people just the music they love? And then if they want other stuff, they can just start subscribing to it. And I figured, I looked at a couple of people and I said, I call them BS barometers, because startups should never drink from their own Kool-Aid. And you should have people who know more and are smarter and more interesting and funnier than you are. That's the rule of thumb. And I said to them, like, I think there's a scope to build niche music streaming services. And a bunch of people were like, you are just crazy. Like, that's stupid. And others were like, absolutely, you should do that. And I listened to them, of course.
Okay, sure.
As
The
one does.
internal optimist, yeah.
The optimism bias is really high as a startup. And I just started assembling a team. And we figured,
Let's
see what happens.
Let's assemble a team. Did you go, okay, cool, I need a CTO, and I needed this, and I needed that. Let me go find these people. How did that come about?
Organically and strategically.
Okay. So your first hire, talk us through that process.
So, I mean, back to my point about having people around you who are BS barometers. The same holds true in life for who you're friends with, and also people you work with. You should always employ people who are smarter than you. And it's a hard thing for a founder, because we'd like to believe that we're awesome, right? Why else are we doing this? But you should always hire people who are smarter than you. And I'd been very lucky to put an advisory board together who are pretty kick-ass. And it's purely as a function of just having enough chutzpah to say, hey, speak to me. And I reached out to a friend of mine who was working at Mixit at the time, and I went, okay, so I have this idea, and I have an advisory board, and I want to build a streaming service. I kind of need a developer. And he said, well, you should speak to this
That's what
dude.
I said, yeah.
And I drove through to Stellenbosch because this dude agreed to speak to me. And we were sitting in Trumpetry. And I think Johan must have thought I was batshit crazy. Because I looked at him and I was like, so ek wil net nie musiekstromdiens bou en is jy in? And I was basically this blonde chick who knew nothing about coding. And my background has always been services business. Like, I've never built a product from scratch. I've been involved in businesses that build product. And Johan kind of looked at me in his very quiet way, and he's like, yeah, sounds interesting. And next thing I knew, he was working double time, and we put an RFP, request for proposal, together for the biggest platform providers in the world. And we were like, right, we're this teeny tiny little company. We have no funding, no team, but would you please pitch on our business? And I think the idea was compelling enough that people figured there was scope to A, bank on emerging markets, and B, look at another way to build a streaming service. And they said yes. So we ended up going through quite an intensive due diligence process with 4 platforms who support, amongst others, Google Play, Apple Beats, Songs at the time, etc. So, yeah.
How did you get to talk to these guys? Did you go up did you randomly find their emails, or how did you get that right?
No, I was lucky. Vadim Brenner, who's on our advisory board, who's ex-Grace Note. That's an interesting story because I got to a conference, landed up at a dinner party one evening, told a Google guy off for being a douchebag at someone else's dinner party. He really was being mean. And unfortunately, as I voiced my opinion about him, the entire table went quiet. And the next night I bumped into these guys again. I'm like, I am so sorry. Like, I apologize. It's not my party. I shouldn't have been so mean. And they went, no, that was amazing. He was a dick. So that worked out really well. And I happened to be a speaker at that conference. So when I arrived at this huge soiree at Midham, I mean, this is in Cannes, and it's just chandeliers, and I'm just overwhelmed. And Stephen and Vadim, who saw me the night before, kind of went, you can join our table. It felt like I walked into a dining room at a American school, and they were like, you can sit with us. And they were just really nice. And I think we've actually really good friends now, but they happen to be pretty big wigs in the music space. So when we were looking for guys who could help us on the back end side, their introduction really carried weight.
Okay, so do you put it down to your experience from your previous companies and your previous connections that allowed you to get to the point where you were able to put an advisory board together and be able to have that chutzpah to go up to people and ask them, hey, help me out?
I think I put it down to you don't know what you don't know.
Okay.
And if I can rewind a year and a half from now, I'd probably be like, do not do that. Because if I'm really honest about it, I had no idea what we were tackling when we tackled it. Like, none whatsoever. In hindsight, it was really stupid. We managed to survive, but it was really stupid. And it might still be stupid. Who knows? Just don't tell my investors. But I think for us, it was like we were willing to try. And the fact that we put an enormous amount of effort. Some of the guys we'd pitched or put the RFP out to came back and said it's one of the most detailed requests for proposal they'd ever seen. And we really made sure that we weren't just going there. We had more to prove than anybody else. We weren't Red Bull going in going, we want this thing that plays music. Like, we were pretty clear on what we wanted, what our architecture was going to be, how we were going to build it, who we were going to partner with, what our rollout plan was. We were really clear on that. And if anything, I think that impressed them because we have both an advantage and a disadvantage being here in South Africa. People are like, oh, it's a southern tip of Africa, like no one matters. But actually, like, if we really put our minds to it, I think we can achieve so much more. And people will set up and take note. They're like, oh, you came all the way here to speak to me? I'm like, yeah, I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere.
We're going to make this through, to see this through. Okay, let's go back to after you studied, you started working for a company.
My own, yeah.
And then you started Mango.
Oh, yes. So, rewind noise.
Okay, there we go.
I, not studying BCom law, meant I went and studied a degree in comms at Cape Tech, did a late entry, and had an internship here, which is a really great part of Cape Tech. Like, you are forced to go into the workspace. And by the end of my internship year, it was an agency that did design and comms and advertising and a whole bunch. And I guess it's just a function of working hard, but by the end of it, I was managing 3 or 4 Woolworths accounts. We were managing Abvest and Paul Valley Golf Estate and Spa, and I got to fly in a helicopter. That was rad.
That's cool.
You know, small things that stick out. And at the end of that, they said, okay, we really like you, but we're going to offer you 2,500 Rand a month. And I looked at them and I was like, but my living costs are 5,000 Rand a month. Just, you know, isn't this long ago? And 5,000 Rand was a little. And I remember really clearly the manager who'd come in halfway through that year, she pulled me into a boardroom and she's like, so what, you think you're worth more? And I was like, actually, yeah, I do think I'm worth more. Because I'm managing 6 accounts on your behalf. So if you want to pay someone else to do that, go ahead, right ahead. Yeah. And I went back to Varsity or Captech and did my 4th year. And then Woolworths Financial Services came to me and they were like, please, will you quote us? And I was like, me? And they said, yeah. And I went in, I quoted them. And I remember so clearly the head looking at me and saying, what happens if a bus runs over you? I'm like, I don't know, you're going to have to just wait and see. And I got the contract. That's and I approached the designer. I was like, Mike, totally need you to do this job for me on the side. And he did, and we just winged it. And then I studied and worked at the same time.
Studied and worked. That was now MANGO-OMC, which stands for Open-Minded Communication. Did you sell that company out, or did you
sold it to my business partner? I eventually got a business partner on board. Great example of finding someone who loves doing everything you hate. She could make spreadsheets, make coffee with sprinkles, if you asked it nicely.
Brilliant.
Me, on the other hand, not so much. I have learned. It is a learned trait. You have to learn how to do spreadsheets. But at the time, I was like, you're so much better. You do that.
Okay. And then what happened after that?
Ran that for 7 years. We worked with some really awesome clients. We did Rocking the Daisies and Red Bull and DSTV and a lot of the NASPAT clients. And that's a great example of fake it till you make it. And this was kind of when blogging first started and Facebook was out there. I remember the Daisies guys came to us and they were like, oh, everyone's starting these Facebook pages for Daisies. And I was like, awesome. They were like, no, they're stealing our brand. I was like, no, dude, they're not stealing your brand. They're just promoting it. So we kind of started this whole blogger campaign and got people to blog about it. And they got backstage passes. It's amazing what happens when you give people free shit. Really. And then we got into Red Bull, and then Red Bull got us into mobile, and that's where the bug bit. I was like, oh, there's this whole world of Red Bull and music and stuff. Okay. And it was a great example of how if you load devices with content services, you can basically drive technology, right? And that's if you look at what happens in the PEP stores market now, people walk in and they're like, I want a phone that has WhatsApp. They don't ask for a phone that has a good camera or like better. Like they want WhatsApp and they want YouTube, and that was kind of my first foray into learning about content services and product and people and stuff. So, yeah.
Okay, now fast forward back to NicheStream. You're busy raising money. You have raised some money. How much have you raised so far?
So we're in the don't raise money. It's not a badge of honor. It's what do you call those things?
A noose. Do you feel, actually I think there's a question somewhere. Do you feel like having raised money now work for a boss?
No, because if you're good at choosing your investors, then you hopefully don't land up in that situation. Okay. I've said this a few times, so don't quote this, it will be old news. But you raise partners, not money. Okay. And you can have investors who are phenomenal, like guys who will jump in. In fact, one of them is in the room tonight, Nicholas. Nicholas has worked with me tirelessly for hours. He comes from eBay and My Hummer, and he has ops experience, and he will, at the drop of a hat, I will phone him and I'll be like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then he will help me with a spreadsheet, and he will help me with like systems and reaching out to other investors, and just phenomenal. So it makes a difference like who you have on board. And I think sometimes like that thing about working for someone is if you're a startup raising money and you land in a fund that is 5 years, but you're landing on year 3.5, you have a year and a half to show them a return, and then they're hard on you because their objective isn't to help you, it's to make money. So it also depends on where you drop into that timeline, I guess. We had to raise money because the truth is that you got to pay minimum guarantees to labels like Sony and Universal, etc. We have back-end partners, we have our own stuff. we're not running a business you can bootstrap, even though we have run.
It's
The
very
team can
lean.
attest to this, as lean as you can humanly run. And I think the thing about investors is know when your business should and could raise money. For us, we're now in the middle of a fundraise. It's the biggest one we've done. So we've only ever done angel and then follow-ons, and we're now doing a proper seed. We're doing a 3.5 pre-money valuation, dollars. We peg our entire business on dollars, and we're raising $1.5 million.
Why on dollars?
Twofold. Our partners are mainly international.
Okay.
We also, as much as South Africa is a great space in which to run an operations center, have talent, etc., cheap, obviously, to run a business from here compared to anywhere else. But our ambitions are that we have one stream, maybe two in South Africa, but the rest sit all offshore. So whether that's across the continent or in South America or in the Middle East, or even having an office out of the UK that we can manage expat communities from. So our business from the get-go has been pegged in dollars.
Okay. When you're raising your initial funding and stuff, how do you value your company?
Basically. So we started off with just a pitch deck. We'd done the RFPs, we put the team together. I don't think I answered that question, but yeah, put the team together. And we sent it out, and for some reason, and do not peg your life or your funding raise on this, it will never happen again. I think it's a freak of nature, but we raised $250,000 US in 5 days.
Cool.
I wish that would happen as easily again.
But international funders, nothing local.
No, both. So
Oh,
a combination of.
okay.
And we basically looked, and this is how seed rounds work in general, and if anyone wants any links on this, I can give you a reading list this long, but seed rounds and below generally don't have this is how you work out your valuation, multiples, etc. There's certainly predictions as to where you could go and what you think the market size is like and the people's propensity to pay, etc. But at the end of the day, it was we are willing to sell 25% equity. We need X amount to see us through so many months. Therefore, our valuation is 750 pre, $1 million post. Who's in?
Okay.
And it's, as far as I'm concerned, there is science behind it, but really not. It boils down to emotion. Do be willing buyer, willing seller. Is someone willing to believe in your idea? Do they believe the team can execute? And at the end of the time frame you've given them, did you or did you not execute? And were they then willing to back you up again?
If you were starting just any app, not now your app, but any app, would you set it up locally or would you set it up internationally? And what is your rationale for both?
So I've mentioned the lean part. I know you're giving away a lean startup tonight. It's a good read. We knew from the get-go that our IP would have to sit offshore eventually. It's a very expensive process. It can be as expensive as you choose it to be. I know guys who have deleted 12 million lines of code and have literally removed hard drives from their developer computers. It's just so that they don't sit in a situation where they can ever land up being accused of moving IP offshore, etc. We knew from the get-go, and actually one of the first conversations I had with our with our legal team, Domus attorneys, who are phenomenal. If anyone's running a startup, they don't pay me for this. They're just great. I said to them, where do we go? And they're like, well, it's kind of hard to say because you could spend this money incorporating offshore, but now, you don't even know if it's going to work or not.
Yeah.
And so we're a year and a half in, and I'm like, oops, it's working. We should incorporate offshore, and there's a number of, I'm also happy to share this, a lot of information that we've gained from talks through Endeavor and Weber Wenzel and those guys. When should you or shouldn't you incorporate offshore? Are you going to spend the money up front to do it? Cool. But then you're not spending money on salaries and product and everything else. We're in that position now where we do want to be offshore for 2 reasons. One, we can attract international investment. There is still a hesitancy to invest in South Africa or just Africa as a whole. And secondly, if we ever exit, it would be nice not to have to deal with IP exchange control. Yeah. There's also another really big factor, which is I don't want to land up in jail, and that's a real risk. If there's any record of us moving our IP from here to there, where there ever may be, whether that's Amsterdam or Mauritius or Delaware or the UK or Berlin. It's a real concern, and you should consider where you want to be. And every jurisdiction has its pros and cons, but depending on what your business wants to achieve.
Okay, so get advice, basically. Did you ever have to work with the South African Music Rights Organization, SAMRO?
Yes.
And how was that experience?
Actually, really great. So SAMRO and what's the other one? Norm, right? SAMRO and Norm have merged. Suzanne's our head of content. She knows better than I do.
Good, Suzanne.
And it's called Capasso. And it is a really great thing. So one of the things that our streams are based on is, if you think about a mass market streaming service, Deezer, Spotify, Apple, and I'm a Spotify user, I should just qualify this. So I'm not against any of them. All I'm saying is they're people who love particular genres or types of music. But what happens is that if you are an artist competing against 40 million tracks and however many hundreds of thousands of artists, you get paid out, depending on your label contract, according to your market share of the plays on the platform that month. So the easiest way to describe it, if you're paying $10 a month for Spotify, $7 of that goes into a content revenue pool, and if Sony gets 20% of the streams on the platform that month, they take 20% of $7. And that's $7 times 39 million paying subscribers at this point. But the problem is that if you are Koos Kombuis or Karen Zoid or a Nigerian gospel artist, your market share is so small, and sometimes you're also attached to a label, and the label takes their portion because they've helped you record your CD, and they helped you tour the country, and they put you on a Nando's ad. You see very, very little of that. So artists as a whole have a really negative perception around streaming because they don't see any money from it. It's twofold. One, they could see more money from it in the model that we're proposing, which is smaller number of subscribers, but you're only competing against 499 other artists.
Okay.
But secondly, also, you should see it in the way that you saw radio in the past, which is an opportunity, and we can give them that data, like where are your fans, what are they listening to, which tracks work, which tracks don't work, where should you tour, etc. Like we can really drill quite deep on that and see it as a way to understand how you should market your product and your shows and your merchandise. So it's just a...
Okay. We're going to open up to some questions. So here's a microphone. Somebody help me run around with the microphone. Hey, it's a question right at the back. Cool. Let's see. Will you be able to? Okay, thanks. Thank you. My wonderful wife will be passing the microphone at the back. There we go.
I see there are a whole bunch of
Sorry, if you don't mind talking into the microphone, so the video guys can pick up. So on YouTube later, the guys can hear what you're saying.
Hi there, I've got two questions.
Sure.
First one is about viability.
Mm-hmm.
So you make your money from selling information to brands?
It's threefold. We make our money from either subscription, so B2C. User pays a subscription fee every month and gets access to as much music as that we have on our platform. Secondly, we make our money through value-added services in the future, so we'll still implement this, the ability to incorporate ticketing. Imagine you have a brand that sponsors a playlist or an artist, and we then serve a mobile voucher to the user who listens to that playlist, so a cooking playlist, for example. Next time you walk into Pick n Pay, you get 10% off brand X, but we take 10% of basket value. Others would be data analytics, both for brands and for labels who are trying to find new artists, new talent, brands who are trying to understand which artists they can partner with for endorsement deals, etc., influencer marketing. And then actually the core of our business is that we intend to white label, and in fact already talking to two, a telco and a brand to do that, but white label our technology. So if you're a brand and you want to launch your own streaming service, we have the technology to do that.
And regarding your RFP,
Mm-hmm.
which is a new word for me,
Request for proposal. Don't worry, I had to learn that myself.
which of those three income streams impressed your investors, or were they impressed with your je ne sais quoi?
Hopefully not my je ne sais quoi, because I can be grumpy. But I think it boils down to the ability to, A, look at emerging markets where streaming services didn't a year and a half ago have such a prominent, we didn't have Apple or Deezer. I mean, Deezer was North Africa, but didn't quite exist here. But the fact that we were willing to look at vertical markets. And then, so in other words, instead of taking kind of the long tail, we're drilling down into CakeNet user loves Afrikaans, for example. So the same would apply to our streaming service. But to give you, by way of example, Licky as a stream breaks even at 26,000 users. Spotify right now has 39 million paying subscribers, and they're still not making a profit. So for an investor, that's fairly appealing.
And then, how did you get to Midam?
They
How did
invited me to
you
speak.
get an invite, or how did you make your way? That part of the story, it's a nice gap that I'd like to.
So
explore.
I got an email that says, we would love you to come and do a talk on music and content services in Africa. And I did.
And then last, from me,
Get them all out.
Good questions, good questions.
how do you market your service to the end user?
So our head of marketing is actually here. I'm happy to introduce you to him afterwards. So right now, we work very closely with artists and bands. And I say that because sometimes the band is the entire proposition. So they'll do shout-outs. We use Facebook a lot. We have been working very closely with radio stations, Bok Radio, etc., who actually have been really open to working with us. We also did a deal with WeChat. So WeChat bought 45,000 subscriber months from us upfront. So 15,000 users got 3 months each. And we, for that, got CakeNet, TV ad space, and a number of others. And then Media24 has just bought a 10% stake in our current round. So we'll be working very closely with Huisgenoot, Netwerk24, etc. So the nice thing about doing a niche service is we're very clear about who we need to market to. We don't have to throw mud at the wall to see what sticks. We know who we're speaking to, we know which channels to speak to, and we can put out one message that is very particular to that audience.
Thank you very much. Any other? Here we go.
Thank you. I'm going to follow your lead with 1 or 2 questions. Your competition in Africa, what is it? I know internationally there's Apple Music, there's Spotify, and where is your placement? Secondly, you kind of answered your Afrikaans niche, but is your platform open to other genres perhaps, and how do you go about that?
So I'm going to do this back to front. We started with Afrikaans because I am Afrikaans. And in fact, my most lucrative clients in my first business were Afrikaans clients. There's something about the Afrikaans audience. In fact, 58% of domestic music sales is Afrikaans music.
In South Africa?
In South Africa.
Wow.
So that was an easy way to start. It's like there is a definite need. And if you wanted to hear Afrikaans music, you had to turn on RSG or go to CakeNet Musiek. Or it was hard, like you couldn't go one place and find the music you love.
Spotify's only got those 5 Afrikaans artists.
Well, Spotify has great Afrikaans artists, but they tend to lump them into one streaming service, like one playlist. So I always joke, it's like putting Britney Spears and Red Hot Chili Peppers on the same playlist. It's like, let's start an English music playlist. It's just weird. This just doesn't work. So the Afrikaans was easy enough for us to tap into. But there are others. So we're working with one of the local telcos to build a sub-Saharan gospel music stream for them. So they'll white label our technology and we'll work with them to curate that content, etc. And what's great is that as an over-the-top service, we offer telcos especially an opportunity to capitalize on data. So they'll zero rate the service, but then they'll bundle it in with a bunch of other things. And it's a way for people to switch. In fact, there is research that shows 65% of people are willing to switch if they can get a streaming service with their bundle. So we're sitting in a sweet spot. We just got to stay there. But we'll see where that goes in the next few years. As out of interest, in South Africa, downloads are, the compound annual growth rate for downloads between now and 2020 is minus 11%. And streaming is plus 41.7%. So people are going to start realizing you can either download 5 tracks at 10 Rand a track, or you can subscribe to a service or have it sponsored by someone and actually get access to it. In terms of competition, across Africa, quite a number. There's Mziki, wouldn't say direct competition right now because we don't have services similar, like genres similar to theirs. There's Mziki in East Africa. In Nigeria itself, there are quite a number like MTN, Google+, Deezer itself, Spinlet, iRocking, etc. North Africa, Francophone Africa also sits with a lot of Deezer, and then in Egypt you get a lot of Angami, which spills over from Middle East. And in fact, there are a number of Middle Eastern and Asian streaming services that do exceptionally well on the regional side of things. So they'll offer a deep catalog. You'll get Britney Spears if you ask nicely, but they'll surface local content first. And for me, it's that idea that when you land there, you're like, how did you know I wanted that? So some of the stuff we've been researching, our investors are currently lead investors out of Bahrain. So we're looking at a competing Arabic stream. We've looked at Persian, we've looked at Nigerian gospel. 85 million Christians in Nigeria who have the same problem Afrikaans people have. There's no one place you can find your content. And then actually we've been looking at Maskandi. So Timbiza, who's sitting to your front left, is doing all our research on Maskandi right now.
Those are interesting niches. Coming back to je ne sais quoi, do you guys know what je ne sais quoi means? Does anybody know yet?
Je ne comprends pas.
I don't know, yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Okay, it actually literally means I don't know. Okay, coming back to je ne sais quoi, what is your thoughts on women in tech?
I hope to be in a world one day where that's not a question that gets asked.
Say no more. Okay, I saw a hand going up here at the back here. Question, yeah. Hey, Mark.
Any chance for podcasters to use your platform? So like your SoundCloud and so on, they're very much trying to get into that space as well. So what's your take on that?
We actually already feature a lot of spoken word content. Vach stories being one of them. We even have things like, it might not be podcasts, but if you remember Tola van der Merwe, 4 kamp stories. So yeah, spoken word's a big deal for us. Actually, one of the unintended consequences, but kind of a cool consequence, is that we become a very deep library for back catalog. So content that you wouldn't otherwise have found. I'm desperately trying to get Storyman. Like if anyone here is Afrikaans, you'll know what I'm talking about. But old content that wouldn't otherwise have a home. And so definitely podcasts.
It's not like hidden away in Naspers' archives somewhere.
It's actually not Naspers, believe it or not. It's NB Publishers. But
oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Weirdly, Storyman's an interesting one because you still need the book. You need that thing that goes ping, and then you can look at the pictures. But yeah, we're totally open to that. And in fact, there is one other service in South Africa working very closely with the radio stations around podcast content. For us, it's always been about giving artists, if you're an artist, you should be as widely spread as you can possibly be. It is our job to get as much users there and show you that you can earn revenue from that.
Any other questions?
No, just the second one there, that just put on the negative side is, on the top of the board there behind you, but your stake that Naspers is now taken, what do you make sure that you're not another Money for Jam?
Money for Jam is associated with WeChat. They were in fact involved with us. They had an option to invest, and we got kicked over to Media24 because it's a better fit. So shortly from the beginning of next year, if you're on Huisgenoot or Netwerk's page, you'll constantly see deep links to artist playlists and culturally relevant or time relevant playlists. So for example, if it's, I always use this one, Nasionale Melkterdag, you'll see a Nasionale Melkterdag playlist. And I think it's about us working very closely with the teams to give content to the users that they don't currently offer. They do not offer music content. So hopefully we don't go the same route. We haven't yet through our association with WeChat, but it is a good example of choosing partners that are very closely aligned with the users are closely aligned.
Cool. There we go.
Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to ask, so for your research that you do into these countries, do you guys ever have like field workers who go in there, or do you read like scholarly content that outlines basically what the problems are, say for Nigeria, where you say there's 85 million Christians, etc., and then what informs that, and what informs your decisions? And then the second question is, well, I suppose the third, technically. Third question is, are there any markets where you've been really surprised, where you went into and you were like, holy shit, okay, this market is actually better than I expected?
I totally wish I could say that. We're only a year and a half old. So I should qualify this. In a year and a half, we've built an entire back end. We host on AWS. We've built 3 clients, web, iOS, Android. We've done deals with all of the majors and the indies and the aggregators. It's, as far as execution goes, that is one thing I will say for the team. Phenomenal. I don't know, we're one of the few startups, and maybe Nicholas, who's right in front of you, can attest to this. Every time I speak to him, he's like, that's amazing. How did you do all of this? But we actually have a sign up in the office that says an idea is only as good as the execution. So as far as launching, Afrikaans for us is a bit of a proof of concept. Does it work? Do the payment models work? Do the onboarding flows work? How do we use our user support, billing, etc.? So we're not there yet. In terms of research, twofold. One, my previous business, HQAfrica, we helped guys like Mozilla Firefox, PriceCheck, Dating Lab, etc., launch into Kenya and Nigeria. So I come from a biz dev background, have a team that still operates in Nigeria, and they have actually helped me tremendously with doing research in Nigeria itself. We've had, in the last 3-4 months, about 4 or 5 guys reach out directly saying, we read an article, we think you should do this. We are Praise Radio, and we're just an online radio station like Pandora, and we have 5,000 consecutive listeners at any given time. Please, can you help us launch something? Others like Caltex Records in California, who are a Persian music label, who were like, we have 50% of the Persian music catalog. Can you help us launch a white label stream? So that stuff happens. And then an example would be like the local telco coming to us saying, we know our users really love gospel music. Can you help us license it and build it? So it's a combination of both desktop research and partner research. What I would love more than anything in the world is a team I can be like, off you go. And hopefully I form part of that. And you can go into new territories and understand the partners, the labels, the artist needs, the brands they're associated with, the user, burning need. Do you really want this content or not? But we haven't quite had the funds for that. That's a bit more expensive.
You don't sleep much, do you? Doing all these things, or do you just have a phenomenal team?
Turns out Valium's a great drug.
Okay,
joking, not joking. No, I mean, there are times that you sleep really well. There are times where you're like, sure, this is tough. And this morning, actually, I turned to Lois and I was like, I don't want to get out of bed today. I can't face this day. And it doesn't mean that what you're doing is terrible. I think that what we're not honest enough about is that we may choose it, and you choose it every single day, but it's dis nie maanskyn in roos nie.
Tough love.
Yeah.
Do you have a failure that you've encountered? What is your worst failure that you've had?
Wow.
Putting on the spot
so
here.
Many.
Okay, we'll come back to that one.
No, sorry, I have to think about it. There's so many. You know what the I don't know if it's a failure or both just stupidity, but this unending belief that it must be possible. Someone should be able to do this. And I think you and I spoke about it this morning. The biggest lesson I've learned, this is my 3rd business, if you're not honest with people, I will wake up every morning going, yeah, it's possible, right? But you've got to remember that you're playing with other people's lives. Not playing with it, that's perhaps not the right term. People need to get paid, and they have salaries. And the biggest weighing thing I have over my head is I wake up in the morning, I'm like, people have to get paid, and the office has to get paid, and content providers have to be paid, and Amazon has to be paid. And this isn't just my life. I'm not just making decisions for myself. And I guess my biggest failure sometimes is just to kyk noord en fok voort. Sorry to use that expression. I was told not to
look
swear.
Forward and go.
To look forward and go. And sometimes I get caught up in that. I get caught up in what's possible, and this I want to make a difference, and I have to pull myself back and go, okay, but is this possible? And are you smoking your own socks, or Like, should you keep going? And we've had some tough decisions. I mean, the team can attest to us sitting in the ice cream room. That sucked. We don't
Can you
have.
tell us that story?
So we don't have our own. We sit in a co-working space, and we don't have closed space to sit and talk in. Not have a talk about like, guys, not paying salaries at the end of this month. Sorry. Not really, a bit more serious than that. But and there's 22/7 have these incredible themed meeting spaces. The one honestly looks like a 1950s ice cream parlor. So I'm like, guys, we have this meeting in this room of, site. And I take them in there and it looks all cool and there's like all the whiteboards.
Cool.
I'm like,
bonuses
so
or something.
We are in trouble. Money's coming in, but cash flow is a problem, and this is kind of tricky, and this is how much we have, and this is what we have to pay. And we sat there, and maybe this is just testament to the team, it's testament to the people who support us. But yeah, we had a pretty tough discussion, like, do we or don't we go ahead? Like, are we smoking our socks? Because we're going up against some big guys, and it's tough. Like, jy moet daar op jou tande hê to do this. Like, you're not just... we're never going back to the ice cream room again, for sure.
So they all rallied around you and made the lances.
Yeah,
and
we had a rooftop celebration last week, and when we finally put the guest list together, we're 5 permanent in the office. We have a product owner in Germany. So we use a distributed model. We have a licensing consultant in Joburg, etc. But when we put our list together of people from accountants, designers, payroll people, etc. PAYE is a tricky thing to figure out if you don't have payroll people. And it was 108 individual humans who make this possible. And we forget that like startups have this ecosystem we operate and they overlap, but we may think it's just us and 4 other people, but me, myself, and I, and 4 other people. But we have this whole universe that support us. And I think the biggest lesson I've learned in the last year is like, be honest. Talk about the good and the bad. Talk about how shitty it is when like funding is just, you want to pull your hair out. And I actually sat in an investor meeting the other day. I'm like, look, you're either going to get it or you're not.
Either give us the money or just walk away right now.
And this guy's like, really? And then turned the whole thing around, and he ended up taking me to his board. But it was just I was like, wow, that Silicon Valley show thing has some merit to it. Be straight up. But there's a thing about like being honest with people, and it goes for if you have investors, like tell them when it's tough. I mean, Nicholas has heard me go like, I don't know what I'm doing, couple of times, and people will support you. If you're going to bullshit all the way, then expect
Bullshit back.
to get pushback. But hopefully you can't obviously keep doing it. You can't keep pulling your team into the ice cream room. They will disappear. But I think if you're honest enough, that's been my biggest lesson. And with that, if anything comes vulnerability, it is an incredibly hard thing to be vulnerable. We think we have to be all like, we're awesome and, everything's great. And every time you meet someone, I always use the baby analogy. You meet new parents and like, it's amazing. Meanwhile, that kid kept you up last night. It screamed. You had to change its nappy 5 times. You just want to kick it across the football field. But you be like, it's amazing. And it's not. You're hating being a new parent right now. It sucks, says the person who has no children. But that's my...
Fake it till you make it and be real. Okay. One last question. Oh, your hand went up just split seconds up. I'm sorry about that.
Story.
Okay, I'll put my 3 questions into one.
Ooh,
firstly,
okay, focus.
Okay, firstly, how did you get your investors?
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, how do you know that your investors are not just going to rip you off? Like people that actually want to invest in your business and aren't just going to like run off? And thirdly, how do you start up against the big guys? So you started off as a small thing, but there are bigger people out there than you. How do you start up and, yeah.
Okay, so question 1, how we found our investors purely through network. So people I already knew, referrals, etc. It's not my first rodeo. I haven't raised money before, but I was involved in a startup before this that was raising money, so I got very deeply involved in kind of valuations and investor decks and due diligence and all of that. It's also a function of being a bit older. So I'm 35 now. So when I started this, I was 33, and I've been involved in the tech space for a while. So I guess just I knew some folks I thought might be interested. How do you know you won't get ripped off? So we've only ever done priced rounds. There are a number of ways to go about it. You can do, convertible notes, safe agreements, etc. We've only ever done priced rounds. The point is, you put your money in, we give you shares. That's how it works. It's like going to buy a toasted sandwich. I give you 10 Rand or 15. How much does a toasted sandwich cost? I don't know. And I get the toasted sandwich and we walk away. In this case, there's obviously a vested interest because they're getting shares, but they obviously expect a return on that. And what was the third? I'm sorry.
How do you compete or make yourself known?
Yes,
even though
I
you're
beg your
small
pardon. It's
fish?
been a long day. If I'm really honest about it, I think that the bigger guys are more, what's the opposite of agile? They're kind of like these big lumbering dinosaurs. They gotta come. We have first and last mover advantage. We get to have first mover advantage because we're the first people to look at bespoke streaming services for Africa, to speak to specific audiences in their language and the content they want, playlisting just for them at a price point that works for artists who have never been considered. Like Spotify is not looking at that gospel artist from Nigeria. Like they may look at the bigger guys that are represented by labels. We're looking at building our own ingestion platform. You can come directly to us in the next 6 months to a year, upload your content, and actually earn money from your passion. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we also have last mover advantage because where the other guys started up 6, 7 years ago in the case of Spotify or even like the bigger services, we get to host on an AWS and we can spin up instances and drop them and tailor our costs, and we have the advantage of AI coming out and TensorFlow and all these neural networks and like really interesting stuff. And the guys 2-3 years from now will have that one up on us. That's just how it works. Being smaller means I get to walk into a Sony and go, hey, we want to start a streaming service. And then like, okay, when you've launched, let us know. And then we come back and we're like, we launched, and like, we saw you on TV. And it's amazing what TV does. You can get that. But it's just, I think there's this incredible book that Angela Duckworth has written. In fact, Jeff Bezos quotes it as one of his favorite books, and it was given to me by an investor. It's called Grit. And grit is about you don't have to be the smartest and you don't have to be the best. You just got to be willing to keep at it and keep on keeping on. And I think that's been one of our biggest things is like, regardless of how low it gets or how high it gets, like we will fuss bite.
Fuss bite, I like that. Okay, so we got the winning question. I have, there's so many good questions tonight, but the winning question, I'm sorry, is can you listen to Licky offline?
You can.
That is the winning. Jolene, you've won yourself 3 months to Licky.
Licky.
Done.
Yeah. I want to tell you one last story.
Yes.
If I may.
Please go for it.
So I'm saying this by way of illustration of like how weird life can get, but I recently had the privilege of being taken to part of a group that went to Seattle, and we met with some like AWS and Google and a bunch of others. And our new investors out of Bahrain, and they're like, we really want you to come and meet. They're part of the Gulf royal family there, and please will you come? And I remember thinking like, ooh, I'm going to fly to Bahrain. It's right next to Saudi. This is scary. I'm blonde and I have green eyes. And it's literally 4 or 5 days before. And I'm like, so am I joining you? And they went, yep. And the next thing I know, I get my ticket, and it's a first-class ticket via London to Manama and Bahrain. And I'm thinking, I've never even, like, business class is a treat for me, right? Like, economy is the way I go. And it's insane because I get onto this flight in Seattle, and the woman, like, I arrive, and it's like, Miss Luckhoff, would you like a sleep suit? I'm like, a what? Like a sleep suit. I was like, what is that? And their hostess is like, it's pajamas. Awesome. She goes, what size would you like? I'm like, I don't know. What size do I look like? She says, medium. It's way roomier, love. I went, okay, cool. And this whole flight just keeps going like this. I mean, first class, if anyone's ever flown it, you can never go back. And the best part is, it's like,
good luck.
we're just like signing them on, and I get to London, and these guys have booked me in for the Friday night, but I'm landing Saturday morning at 8. So they've booked the night before in the hotel so that I could check in early. And then they booked me for the following night because I only fly out the next day. And it's insane. I mean, it's literally like the Churchill. And I'm standing at Heathrow Airport going, please don't bounce. Please don't bounce. And this is while paying for a Heathrow Express ticket. And I'm like, please don't bounce. And I hand over my credit card. I'm like, please don't bounce. And all I can think of is this is my entire operating cost for a month, like a first class ticket, a hotel. And I think that's the one thing about being a startup of like complete polar opposites. Like here I am flying first class, being offered a sleep suit, and I'm going, oh fuck that credit card. It's like, this sucks.
There's no money. I've got nothing in my account.
Yeah, don't, whatever you do, just don't bounce.
And the Heathrow Express is not that cheap for a South African.
And I'm like, those cookies in the hotel room sound amazing right now. So if anyone's planning on starting their own business, just know that not everyone flies first class, but there is that.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Are you ready for the Twitter? There we go, Marwan. Give you a microphone. Where did it go? Oh. Do you have the microphone? Sorry. Where's the microphone? Oh, there it is. She's hogging it to the back there.
Thank you. You can't take it home. Okay, let's see. What do we have? Okay. So we've got 3 great tweets that were our favorites tonight. And I'll start with our least favorite of our 3 favorites, which is, but it's better than the rest. So it's the 3rd from the front, not from the back. From Shantae. You need to employ people that are smarter than you. We know that you can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends, and you can choose your business partners. So just emphasizing the fact that we have a choice. You're not thrown into an investor and you don't have a choice who you want to work with. So if you choose wisely, you can really, secure yourself for the future. And then we've got a great tweet from Basha as well, who was saying that there is no time to think of failure. We always need to think about possibility and think about success. And that is extremely true, and it's something that we've really learned from your story tonight. It really captures, where we're going. And the winning tweet is from Mademoiselle Nomad, who I'm thinking is Beatrice, judging by the name. It is you, right? Sitting right over there. Saying that we shouldn't just be bragging about our successes. We need to share our hardships too, because in our hardships and within that vulnerability, we can find strength. So thank you so much, Beatrice, and congratulations on winning.
Come forward, Beatrice, come forward. There's a photographer, there we go. You can pass the book.
Cool.
And then Beatrice...
I always wanted to do this. There you go, madam.
Just take a photograph quickly. Jump on the stage. Yeah, there we go.
All like, hi.
Awesome. So, Beatrice, you also get to get 3 months of Licky. How cool is that? So please get in touch with us. There we go. Excellent. Okay.
We'll have you singing David Kramer in no time.
Yeah, it should be Kaptein's Funny Sailor. Eh?
Yeah, Bokkie.
Okay. We've also started a new thing we tried out. So Willem is going to tell us about, firstly, who he is, and a bit about this networking board thing. So thank you, Willem.
Am I off the hook yet?
Hey guys, my name's Willem. My company is Code Like Clockwork. We're one of the sponsors. If you need any kind of e-commerce development, Bruce and Marcus back there are the guys to speak to. They're brilliant at it. So one of the big benefits that you get from Startup Grind is the opportunity that you have to come and network here with like-minded entrepreneurs. Not only do you get to network here before and after the talk, but we're going to give you some free marketing as well. You guys saw this board as you walked in. On this board, we've listed the attendees, what services and products they offer, and what they need, potentially, from one of you guys. If you didn't put your details on the board, come and put it on there afterwards. Take a look, see if there's anything you can use or you can need, And we're also going to, over the next month, until the next Startup Grind event, tweet out and post these things onto Facebook. So you're going to get some free marketing if your details are on here. Come and put them on if they're not on yet. I'll give you 2 examples. Where are the guys from Pack to Go? Can you stand up for us, please? So as entrepreneurs, we tend to work too much. We don't actually get out there. We just sit behind our desks, and that's unhealthy. If you guys need to go hiking, these are the guys to speak to. They can sell you equipment. They can sell you tours, everything. Ian, where are you? Same there. Ian also does tours, and he can do safaris for you as well. If you want to see animals, if you just want to do something completely different than this business that we're involved in all the time, speak to Ian over there.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you, Willem. We appreciate that. That's cool. Excellent. Okay, and then finally, after all of this, thank you very much for your opportunity to speak with us. And Fruit Cube have given you this for your office. Guys, make sure this doesn't take us home. Okay. So there we go. And they'll also be dropping off another one later next week. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Cool. Okay, guys, at the bar tab. Guys at the bar, how much tab is left? Is that how much we've used or how much is left? How much is left? 4.5. 4,500. Yeah. Doesn't matter. Guys, there's drinks at the back there, so go. Thanks. Thank you to Zona. Thank you to Zona for evening, and thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. Hit the music.